Hi everyone, and welcome to this Friday's webinar, The Benefits of Peer Coaching. I'm Jean Balfour, Managing Director of Bailey Balfour, and today I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey through what is peer coaching, how does it work, and how could you set up your own peer coaching arrangements. We'll be together for about 40 minutes, I think, today on the workshop, and I'm happy to say that we've got people joining us from really around the world today. So as you can see here on the screen, we have some people from Mumbai, Bangalore, Auckland, my own home city, so I'm happy to see that, Pune, Sydney, Philippines, Beijing, and I do know that there will be other people watching the recording from other parts of the world. So welcome to the webinar today. So I wanted to start with actually a couple of stories about my own journey with peer coaching. So I currently have 3 different peer coaching arrangements, and 2 of those have been in place 15 years. So the first is some friends of mine. Well, we're friends now. We started out as peer coaches, and about 15 years ago, and we met because we wanted to be together to do something that we called a thinking partnership. So to come together to kind of think with each other. What's emerged from this relationship is that we've really become a long-term group peer coaches. So we've been able to sit with each other and we talk about our careers. So we don't talk about personal things, we talk about our work and our careers. And when we come together, we each have time in the time that we come together. So we might meet for an hour, and each of us will have 20 minutes of that time. And the other 2, there's 3 of us in this group, will ask questions and coach us and really help us to think big, to overcome confidence challenges, to think about where we want to be going with our career and our life and our business. And of course, over 15 years, we've seen each of us make some huge changes and some really great movements in our careers and our lives. And I personally would know that I wouldn't have done so much if I hadn't had their encouragement and their kind of partnership and friendship along the way. I've also got 2 other people who are people that I work with as peer coaches, and they're both one-on-one, and they also have different roles. So one of them is a really lovely close friend where we talk to each other about our businesses. So we talk about running the business and we coach each other around that. And then another person who's a man, and he and I coach each other around our kind of professional work, so the content of the work we're doing. And so for me, peer coaching is something that's been an integral part of my life for a long time, and I really, really encourage it. And I guess what you're hearing in the story I'm saying is that we don't have an external coach, we don't have to pay for it, and this is one of the great things about peer coaching, is that you can do it. You can kind of create these peer coaching arrangements, and they can be very powerful. So I thought we would start with an exercise and ask you just to think of a person in your life who's really helped you. So this could be a friend or a family member or a line manager. And think about what it was that they did. What did they do to be so helpful? And if you could type into the questions, because we don't have the chat function available, maybe something about what it was that they did that was helpful. Now, I will read these out. I won't read out your name, so we don't necessarily need to see who's saying that. But if you think about somebody who's helped you, who's a friend or a colleague, maybe a line manager, what was it that they did that helped you? What were the things that they did with you to make it such a fulfilling encounter? So you might want to think about some of the general things that people do, like we know that good friends are very good listeners, but in many ways it goes beyond that. Are there other things that they did? So if you're prepared to share some of these and type them into the question box, then that would be great. Okay, I understand we're still having tech challenges, so I'm gonna keep going, and we'll just talk over it, and we won't worry about where the slides are up to. So somebody's saying that they challenged me with really very good and detailed questions, and I think that's right. So a good peer coach, but also a good friend or a good line manager really helps you to think about that in that coaching arrangement and helps you to think about what you can be doing. I'm just having another go at getting the slides going. It's sorry. So they did do that. And if I think about the people that I've worked with, then they've certainly done that. They've really helped me to be challenged, to be stretched, to be moving beyond what I might have done already. And somebody else is saying they kept asking, why are you doing it? So they really challenge and question you and kind of put it in that space. So that's a really good thing. Takes the emotion out of decision making. So this is really important. One of the things that we know about neuroscience is that when we're thinking on our own, it kind of hangs around in our head, and it particularly hangs around in our emotional the emotional part of our brain, the amygdala. But when we talk about things, it's much easier for us to access our analytical thinking. And so any form of coaching, any form of talking out loud enables us to do that. Okay, so those are all parts of what help us to the experiences that you've had of people who have helped you, and they all relate directly to what is peer coaching. So what we can see here is that Galileo said this quote, that you can't teach humans anything, you can only help them to discover it within themselves. And really underpinning peer coaching is this concept that it's about helping us discover things. And I certainly think that of my own peer coaches, it's been very much about helping me to learn and discover what's best for me, not their perspective of what was good for me, but what's my perspective of what's good for me. And coaching, and I include peer coaching in this, differs slightly from the other things that we hear. So we often talk about mentoring or sponsorship, and all of these are about facilitating change. So they're all about helping us grow and improve. But the difference is that a mentor might be more inclined to share knowledge, to share their factual the facts that they know, their experience. And a sponsor would be somebody who would actually be helping us, who would be reaching out to people and helping move us on. Whereas a coach is really asking us questions, stretching us, all the things that you said, helping us to move on ourselves. They're really helping us to make the change. There's somebody who sits with us in that thinking conversation to help us make the change. And John Whitmore, who's credited with developing the GROW model, says that he believes that coaching is about unlocking a person's potential to maximise their own performance. It's helping them to learn rather than teaching them. It's about building awareness and responsibility, and that's the essence of good coaching. And I certainly see this in my own coaching practice and also in the peer coaching arrangements I have. It's about helping me to grow. That's the primary thing that's happening in the arrangement. So just to link it back to the research and why we believe that coaching is so important, and as many of you know, we talk about coaching a lot in the business. So one piece of research that came out from the International Coach Federation last year was actually seeing coaching as linked to increased performance and productivity, improved relationships, decreased stress, and increased resilience, and a few other very practical things like time management and onboarding. And I think all of this is true for peer coaching as well. So this is not just that it has to be either an executive coach or a line manager who's coaching you, but it is a general coaching helps this. And again, my own experience is that when I go away from my peer coaching conversations, I feel kind of ready to face the next challenge. I feel like I've got increased resilience, that I know what to do and I've got some strategies. And so I see this happening for myself as well. Another study that was looking at coaching in organisations actually saw that it had a direct impact on increased performance. And so coaching helps to address specific performance gaps as opposed to training. And again, I think this is also directly related to peer coaching, because I see that if I'm able to bring a challenge or something I don't know what to do to a peer coaching environment, then actually, first of all, I feel incredibly safe to talk about it in that peer environment, but I also am able to kind of come up with solutions and improve my performance moving forward. So what can peer coaching help us to do? So it can help us identify and achieve goals. And with the first coaching arrangement I described, that's certainly what we've done. We meet once a year to set our sort of annual goals. Where do we want to be this time next year? And that's been incredibly motivating. And also we know that we're going to hold each other accountable for those. We've talked about it helps to improve performance. Having a coach can help us to clarify issues, and very likely we're saying about taking the emotion out of something. It helps us to get some sort of analytical clarity, to see things differently, to get different perspectives, and really to learn. And it can also help us to get unstuck. This final point I want to make is that I think often we can feel a bit isolated in our organisational life, in our roles, and having a peer coach, either inside the organisation or outside the organisation, can help us to feel less isolated, help us to have that safe place where we can talk. Now, one of the things that peer coaching offers that's really different to a kind of executive coach, an external coach, or a coach that's your line manager or within the organisation is that it can be less intimidating because you're a peer. So it can feel less concerning to say, look, I'm really stuck on this issue, I don't know what to do about it, or even to talk about your grand and bold career ambitions can sometimes feel safer to talk about those with a peer than it can be with a senior. And so I also see peer coaching as helping to create this very safe environment. So what is peer coaching? Well, it's first of all very much trust-based. So the relationship only works when there's a good level of trust. And in a minute, I'll share with you ways to go about creating that trust. It obviously has to be confidential. And so it's important that you agree confidentiality around that. And it brings a mix of support and challenge. And so it's that ability to both encourage and help move each other on, and also to challenge each other. And as one of you said in your comments, that it is about that challenge. It's helping to ask good questions to do that. It's also reciprocal. So I generally encourage peer coaching arrangements to be 50-50. If there's two of you, or obviously 30-30-30 if there's three of you, but basically what they are is they're creating an environment for you to be coached and then for you to coach. They are creative, so this idea of being together helps to generate ideas. What we see is that we get a greater cognitive level of thinking when we have a thinking partner. Nancy Klein, who's done a lot of work in this space, believes that when we're thinking out loud with somebody, actually it kind of increases our level of intelligence, and I certainly witnessed that happening for myself. It's about mutual listening, and it's certainly about a lot of listening. So what it isn't a forum really to directly give advice. It's not an I'll tell you what to do, because that's really not the essence of coaching. The essence of coaching is about somebody working out their own issues and coming up with their own solutions. As I've already said, it's not really mentoring, because that fits a bit into giving advice. And then really critically, I believe it shouldn't be about these things that are about gossiping or moaning, because for a good peer coaching relationship to work, it should be about helping us to get unstuck, helping us to work things through. And if we end up just kind of moaning about things, then that's not really helping us. That's not helping to move us on. And really importantly, it's not counselling. So if we have issues that it's important that we deal with at an emotional level, then we go and see the appropriate practitioners in order for us to do that. So if you are a peer coach, what is it that you are expected to do and how you're expected to be? Well, first of all, you don't have to be the expert. So if I think of particularly the three of us who meet together, they work in very different professional worlds to me, and so I can't possibly be the expert. Perhaps the only part of expert role I play is to ask really good questions and to be a really good listener and to be the person that reflects back and helps them see patterns. So I don't have to have all the answers as a peer coach. In fact, in many ways, I don't have to have any. My role is really to step back and to ask and to listen and to help people solve things. And this final point, that I think that curiosity is great. So if we're curious, we're able to really help somebody to think about something in a new, different way, in a kind of broader way, if you like, in a way that opens up our thinking. And your coaching conversations might focus on on a number of things. So they might focus on specific issues or problems. So I know for me, there's been times when I've come along and said, I'm really stuck. I don't know what to do about this. Please, can you help me think it through? Or it could be about critical relationships. How do I build a more robust, resilient relationship with somebody I'm working with? It can be about exploring opportunities. So I think of one of my people in my peer coaching arrangement where she's really been thinking about a future role, and we've been able to kind of work that through and think about it. We can think about performance issues, things that we're not doing so well and we want to improve on. And then really critically, it's also great for career because it can help us work out where we're going in our career and how to make that work. And I talk about this balancing support and challenge a lot in the work I do, because a peer coach is really about helping us to do this, helping us to get the balance right between enough support and enough challenge. So what you can see here is that if I have too much comfort, if you like, too much safety and security and not enough challenge, then there's a chance I'm going to get a bit bored, and then I'm not going to really be moving myself forward. Now, we know that if we have too much challenge, we can really end up in the stress space, but also that if we're too comfortable, then this can leave us a bit reactive, or it can really leave us not maximizing our potential moving forward. And so for me, coaching of all forms, and particularly peer coaching, is about getting this balance between support and challenge right. Now, I think we all have different size buckets for support and challenge. So I'm a person who quite likes support. I like people to support what I'm doing, and to kind of give me a bit of encouragement and to slap me on the back and say, good job there. I, of course, also like challenge, and I like to have that and plenty of it. I like to set my own goals, have other people help me work towards those goals and achieve them. But I do know other people have different size buckets. So I think of a friend of mine who she's all about the challenge. She really wants challenge. She doesn't need much support. She doesn't seek it out. She just likes to know people are there that she can reach out to if that's important. And I know other people, particularly people I've worked with in coaching arrangements, for whom a lot more support has been needed, and they haven't been getting it in their workplace. And so they've needed that in order to move into this high performance space. So it's really important for us in our peer coaching arrangements to make sure we get that right, and to maybe talk with the person that we're peer coaching, who's our peer coachees, talk with each other about what's your balance of challenge support? What would you most like? And it will change at different times. So there'll be times where actually support is all that's needed because something's happened and in that person's life, or they're incredibly tired, and actually support's the most important thing to help them. There'll be other times where it's really about challenge and come on, bring it on. But it's about holding all of this and seeing that our role in this is to help each other do these things. So I am going to pause there and see if anybody's got any questions. Please type them into the box. If not, I'll go on and talk about the core skills and about how do you go about setting up any peer coaching relationships. So I will come on to that. But I would encourage you, if you've got any questions, to please feel free to type them in, and we'll come on in a minute. Okay, so let's come on to what are the core coaching skills. Well, it may surprise you or not that they're actually, of course, the same skills as being an effective coach. And so I've put them there. I've kind of used slightly different language than we might use normally, but it's meaning the same thing. So the first one is the ability to really listen and pay very good attention. And by good attention, I mean really listening with my whole being. Listening to what the person's saying, to what they're not saying, noticing their body language, and being very attentive to them. And in many ways, if you do nothing other than just pay good attention, then that in itself will be good. Do you remember when I said earlier that often just by thinking out loud, we access our own good analytical thinking. Then if I listen to you, then I'm creating a space for you to think out loud, and that may be all I need to do. Of course, it's really important to be empathic, to be able to stand in the person's shoes and see it from their perspective. But empathy doesn't mean that you have to know the situation or you have to even become emotional with them. It's just about understanding it and seeing that. It's incredibly important to withhold judgment because we never know the full story of a person's world. So if they're in a particular situation, then it's important that we withhold the judgment for them and really trust them, if you like. It goes back to trust, trusting their perspective. It's good to be patient, especially if you're entering a peer coaching relationship over a while, because personal change and career change and life change takes time, and it's good for us to be patient with people. And the last two, real classic coaching skills about asking really good, powerful questions, because we know that questions really stimulate us to think differently, and to offer some summary and reflecting back as a way of helping somebody hear what it is they're saying. Again, we see that as being a very powerful way of helping us in our coaching arrangements. So what does a coaching arrangement look like? Well, you can have peer coaching in many different ways. So you can set it up where there's just two of you. And as you've heard me say, I have two peer coaching arrangements that work like that. You can have threes or you can have a group. For those of you who know about lean-in circles, in many ways lean-in circles are peer coaching groups. And so it's any environment where you're coming together where you are in a peer coaching situation. Now, you can either have a coach who's working with you in that group, or you can self-facilitate it. And either of those is fine. And I currently do run some peer coaching where my job is really to help the group run, to help people to coach each other. I'm the kind of facilitator of that peer coaching group. But there's nothing to say you have to have somebody like me. You can also set your own arrangements up where you are coaching each other within that environment. And you can do it face-to-face or virtual. So increasingly, I am coaching in a virtual environment. Now, my preference is to do that with video conferencing, and our preferred platform for that is Zoom, but there are lots of platforms for that you can use, Google Hangouts or FaceTime. But the virtual environment actually, in many ways, makes the arrangement a bit easier because people are traveling so much, their commitments are hard, their commitments are demanding, and it means that you can carry on with a peer coaching relationship working around those constraints. And so for me, some of my peer coaching relationships are both face-to-face and virtual because three of them are in London, and so then I only see them face-to-face when I'm there, and otherwise in Singapore, I work with them in a virtual way. And my experience is that when you work at building the trust, that virtual is great, and it really doesn't detract, it doesn't make it any different to the face-to-face arrangements, as long as we work well at working well together in that space. And you can get started by, first of all, thinking about who it is. Actually, I didn't put anything in here about how do you choose a good peer, but a good peer coach is really primarily about trust. So the first and most important thing is that you work with somebody that you can trust. They can be inside your organisation, they can be outside of your organisation, and there's somebody who's going to be committed to the relationship, because that's also very important. It has to be a kind of mutual commitment. Either if it's one of you or a group, there needs to be some sense of that commitment. And so you get started by meeting and then booking time with your person. That's kind of really obvious. And then a few ways that you can get going. One is to share your career story, and I'll show you how you might do that in a minute. And ensuring that you set goals. So any coaching assignment works well in the presence of goals, about what are the goals that we're going to set, and agree some ways of working together. So I'll share a little bit about how you might do each of these. So the first one is you might want to just have a really explicit conversation about how we will work together at the beginning of the coaching arrangement. And I talk about this in terms of a coaching contract. So you will be thinking about things like What are the boundaries? What will we talk about? What won't we talk about? How long are we going to meet? What are our ground rules? How are we going to make sure that we commit to meeting times? And if we can't make a meeting, what are we going to do? What's our sort of advance warning? What is it that we bring and offer, and how we work together? Are you up for challenge, or are you somebody who actually is coming to the relationship for support? And whatever other questions that you want to ask. The two that I would really suggest you absolutely make sure you do is, one is agree the confidentiality agreement around it and have an explicit conversation. And the other is really about your commitment to meeting. The others are good to talk about, but not so critical. Those are the two that I think it's really important to talk about at the beginning. And then one tool that we use a lot to help support this is something called a career line. And this is a way of helping you share your own story and career story and the highs and lows to date. And what you do is you basically start from whenever you want to start. So you can start as a child or at school or from your first job or university. And then you talk about the different jobs you've had, what the highs and lows have been of that. And as you do that, look for themes and patterns. So I know that one of the themes for me, may not be a surprise to you, is that there's a theme of people and working with people all through my career journey. And so that's something that I share with people. And by doing this, it really can help you to get to know each other a bit, to kind of build the trust, because you're starting with the same conversation around this. And the other tool that is very useful for you in this, of course, is the GROW coaching model, which many of you will be familiar with. Because once you've got to know each other, my suggestion is that you then allocate time. So if there's two of you, you're meeting for an hour, you have 30 minutes each. And the GROW model is a really great structure for helping you use that time in a structured way. So in one peer coaching session, I might start off by we just catch up with each other, have a check-in, decide who's going to go first, and then set a timer, because that's really good, and then use GROW as your structure. So for those of you who are not familiar with GROW, that's about starting out by saying, what's the goal for the conversation? What would you like to talk about in this meeting? So that might be, I might say, well, I'd like to talk about a new product that I'm developing, and I'd like to think it through in this session. And then reality is where the coach and the coachee, but the coach will ask you questions about, so what's the current story? Where are you up to? What do you know? What don't you know? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities in it? And then you move forward into thinking about what are the options for taking it forward. And the coach will ask you questions to help you think through those options. And then you move into the way forward, which is really the action planning. And action planning is a really critical part of coaching, because it helps me as a coachee hold myself accountable. I know I'm going to have to go away, do these actions and report back on them. But it also helps the person coaching to kind of summarize, to get to the end of that period and think, okay, so this is what we talked about in this session, and this is what we're taking forward now. Then the final bit I would have is that one of the hardest things that people find about any coaching arrangement is that they feel like they want to tell people what to do. And sometimes I believe the coach actually will have some suggestions that are really valuable for the coachee. And I think to withhold them is not a great thing. So I do, first of all, really subscribe to this quote from Marianne Williamson, where she says most people don't need advice, they just need support and discipline in doing what they know works already. And I think that's true, and I think peer coaching creates a really great environment for that. But if something's happening and you think, actually, I've got a suggestion, I've got an offering here that it's crazy for me to withhold, then here are some ways that you might do it. First of all, start with options and start with questions and asking the person what they think they might do. I did some coaching skills training this week, and I saw one of the participants do this brilliantly. The coachee said, I'd like you to tell me what to do. And the coach asked the question, what do you think you should do? So she just pushed it gently back, and this person had all sorts of great ideas and didn't need the coach to tell them what to do. But actually, if the person's still struggling, then use language that's about offering something up that they might want to take. So it might say, one thing I've tried in the past, or let's brainstorm a range of options together and we'll come up with some solutions. But really avoiding telling somebody what to do. So really not going into the you should do this or I want you to do this space. And the primary reason for that is because we never know fully the situation somebody's in, and it really has to be up to them to choose the best way forward and to choose that best environment to be in. So really, that's a kind of simple introduction to peer coaching and into how to set up peer coaching arrangements. So we've got a bit of time now for any questions that you might have. So if you've got questions, please type them in to the question box, and I will come back to you. And you know, I'll obviously, as I said before, won't read out who's asking the question, but I can certainly share with you my thoughts and perspectives on that. And while you're typing those in, I would just say to you that I would really encourage you to seek out your own peer coach. They can last a lifetime, peer coaching arrangements, and I think they're an incredibly valuable part of life and our journey. If you would like to join a peer coaching group, please do email us, and we occasionally have enough people to bring together, and we would be very happy to bring together people either with a coaching arrangement where you have a coach as a part of the group, or to help you set up your own peer coaching group. So at the moment, I don't see any questions there. So if you haven't got any questions, I will just say thanks for joining us, and do carry on connecting with us. Please feel free to share the recording with anyone you think might be interested. For those of you in Singapore, please keep in touch with us, and we'll let you know when our breakfasts are. And we will, of course, continue to run our monthly webinars. But don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions for me directly. Please do reach out and ask me those. That's great. Brilliant. So thanks for your time, everyone, and I hope you have a lovely weekend.